Good morning. In the budget, there was tucked in a legislation. And that legislation, though not yet approved, is likely to become a law as soon as the parliament meets, because the budget would be the first item to be voted upon. And that legislation is in fact fulfillment of an election promise by the Liberal Party. We do appreciate when any party fulfills its election promise, because we have seen that the record of most of the parties has been not to fulfill the promises. I think it was only Stephen Harper who broke the tradition and fulfilled 99% of his promises in the very first year, while Paul Morton didn't fulfill a single promise. John Ketchen fulfilled 38 out of 144 promises. So when Justin Trudeau fulfills another promise of his, we appreciate it. But the way it has been fulfilled is fraught with danger. You recollect that the parliamentary budget officer, the first parliamentary budget officer ever appointed, Kevin Page, was very vocal and outspoken, and he was the person responsible for exposing most of the ills. When he changed, the way he was changed made Liberals come out saying that this post is a parliament post. It should not be dependent on the government, it should remain independent. And by this new legislation, which is a top-heavy legislation according to Kevin Page and overly complicated, the whole legislation erodes the liberty, autonomy, independence, and freedom of the budget officer. Not only his mode of action been changed, but how he acts and how he reports has been made a subject matter of such a change that he would be no better than an apologist for the government's action as far as the budget control is concerned. As a matter of fact, when we see that the potential limits of the type of work the office of the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, will be doing is going to be shocking. And in the words of Kevin Page, this is going downhill. The bill would make, as I said, PBO an officer of the Parliament, which is a good thing. But it currently falls under the authority of the Library of Parliament, but the bill places new restrictions on it. And there is what the problem is. The present PBO was not consulted on the legislation, and when the legislation came into being, he was surprised. He says that legally it's not wrong, but morally it is incorrect. It creates uncertainty. Now, for example, the requirement of approval from the House of Commons and from the Speaker and the Senate Speaker for an annual work plan raises big questions. Till now, the record of the Senate Speaker as well as the House of Commons has been restricted. No politician wants to be exposed. Politicians of all hues, all parties, in fact, form an unholy clique to stonewall any exposure of their wrongdoing. Now, This kind of constraint, which is imposed by the new legislation, would actually limit, quote Kevin Page, the independence of the office in practice. So, the whole purpose of making it more independent has been changed, and is a diametric return to more restriction. Buried deep into 300-page budget bill, most of the MPs possibly did not even read it. And the result is that he's become a creature of the government. The bill has taken away the power of the individual MPs, which earlier they had. And they cannot now ask PBO to provide cost estimate of the various government initiatives. These types of requests are often from the opposition MPs. And as a result of these requests, PBO's high-profile reports have come into existence. If you remember, at the time of Harper, there was a question of the cost of purchasing 65 F-35s. And it was the PBO, at the request of a Liberal MP, Dominic LeBlanc, who is now a cabinet minister, that Kevin Page reported in 2011 that the Conservative government was purposely underestimating the cost of purchasing these F-35s. Now, this would not have come to the notice of either the MPs or the people of Canada, that the Harper government was underestimating the cost with a view to purchase, place an order, and then take a plea that the price has increased. But since the order is there, it has to be fulfilled. Now, under the change law, the MPs would not have that right to demand the estimates of the decisions of the government. Just imagine, the Prime Minister thinks and the Cabinet thinks that they want to declare a war. Earlier, any MP could ask the PBO to estimate the expenses. The Prime Minister or the Cabinet might decide, well, it will cost 100 million. And the PBO may come out with the cost, the present cost, the expected cost, the collateral damage, say at 500 billion. Would we still go for war? Answer would be no. So each action, each decision of the government has a financial implication. And PBO, as an independent revealer of truth about the financial transactions, is supposed to be the guardian of the conscience of the nation as far as the financial aspect is concerned. I'm not going to the political implications or the legal implications of any issue. I'm only talking of the financial issues. So, the rights of the MPs to ask the estimate have been withdrawn in the new legislation. Mr. Page in that report said, now under the new legislation, we would not have been able to cost the price, the real price of F-35s, and the Prime Minister could have gone ahead. Now, this Bill C-44, which is a part of the budget bill, should not have been there as a part of the budget. It should have come independently, separately, so that there could have been discussion on this. You make such bills a part of the budget bill, the purpose is to ensure two things. A, either the bill escapes unnoticed by the people, by the journalists, and also by the parliamentarians. Or at the most, since the time for discussion is limited, you remove that possibility of criticism and possibly amendment. The lack of transparency and trying to hide the implications of any bill is fraught with danger. We always say that in case something is being hidden, there must be something rotten. And that's a fact of life. Now imagine any costing project would conceivably still be launched by the PBO's own initiative. But again, there's a rider. And the rider is that in case the PBO undertakes any such situation, it has to submit a detailed work plan to the speakers of the House and the House of Commons. And these two offices have a history, a proven history, a documented history of opposing PBO. Both speakers successfully challenged Kevin Page and PBO in a federal court in 2013 in a battle over access to the government documents, because these speakers are the creatures of the Prime Minister. So they will not permit PBO to conduct any investigation or even submit a plan. You see, unfortunately, in this world, there's a lot of uncertainty. Unexpected events can happen. And PBO may want to initiate a study on the major government exam spending. But if the work is restricted and can only be done on the permission and the approval of the speaker, then you are taking away the independence of the office and making it subservient to the political decisions. And that is never a welcome sign. The watchdogs are supposed to be independent. The next step may be that the Integrity Commissioner, the Fairness Commissioner, may also be brought under the direct control. Next, maybe the Supreme Court shall do as directed by the Prime Minister. I agree that in practical life, that may already be happening. But to make that as a law, to justify it legally, strikes at the very roots of democratic institutions. Finally, there's another big problem. The information provisions are a disappointment. Two big changes come with the bill. One, PBO can access information writ large rather than just data. So information they can get. They cannot force the government to give them data. Till now, the government had to give them data. And data is what reveals. The information is based on the interpretation by the government. And the government, being a biased party, being an interested party, might not give the correct picture. For example, earlier it could seek permission from the crown corporations and not just the departments. But now it will have to seek permission from the departments and not directly from the corporations. Why this camouflage and why this another layer is beyond any comprehension. You see, unfortunately, the departments and the crown corporations are unwilling to provide necessary information. So, it was assumed that the new bill would bring in more power to the PBO to seek and procure information rather than being restricted to get the information but not get the data. Now, another major issue, and that is one section of the new legislation states that the political parties can ask PBO during the election campaign to provide estimates of potential claim promises. Now, these MPs should review these provisions closely, because when you review the campaign promise, there are many implications, and that can be devastating. Unfortunately, the new bill being a part of the budget is an insidious effort to make the office subservient. What we need is to de-link the bill, and this is up to the MPs to do it, or to keep it pending and discuss it thoroughly, refer it to a committee, refer it for public consultation, or even refer it for comments of the judicial authorities. The best ideal would be the Supreme Court Chief Justice, the Integrity Commissioner, and the PBO sit together and discuss the implications before it's adopted in the next few days and becomes a law. The law would be detrimental to the interest of the Canadians, to the interest of fairness, to the interest of transparency, and it shall become nothing more than a department under the Prime Minister just to okay whatever he says, rather than being the ears and eyes of the Parliament to expose wrongdoing. And that is what is needed. Thank you.